All right, everyone, let's dive in. We're about to walk through one of the most familiar stories ever told, but I think we can look at it in a new light. This isn't just some ancient tale. It's really a profound case study of temptation. It's the blueprint for how relationships break, and believe it or not, the very first hint of how they're restored. So right out of the gate, the story sets a very specific tone. We're told this isn't an accident or some simple mistake. No, this is a deliberate, cunning strategy. The text introduces the key player who's about to disrupt paradise. And the Hebrew word used for cunning here is arum. It describes this sharp, shrewd kind of intelligence, but one that's being twisted for deceptive purposes. And that's exactly the lens we're going to use here. We're going to look at this as the anatomy of a fall. By breaking it down, we'll see a pattern that reveals so much about human nature, about the tactics used to divide us from God, and ultimately, God's incredible heart for restoration, which starts right here at the very beginning. The serpent's approach, well, it's basically a masterclass in deception. And it all starts by targeting the very foundation of trust, God's own words. It's a three-part attack that is frankly as effective today as it was back in the garden. Okay, so the first weapon he deploys is a question, but it's a very specific kind. The Hebrew phrase is apki amar, which translates to something like, did God really say? You see what he's doing? It's a formula designed to inject doubt. The strategy is brilliant in a terrible way. He takes God's one single restriction and twists it to make God's overwhelming generosity seem unfair. The very first step in the attack is to make us question the goodness of God. So once that seed of doubt is planted, what's the next step? He moves from doubt to a direct lie. Lo mut achulath lut. You will not die. I mean, it's a flat-out contradiction of what God clearly warned. The strategy here is to suggest that rebellion is actually safe, that sin has no consequences, and that God was just lying to keep something good from them. And this brings us to the final step, the ultimate lure. Hilo Haim, you will be like God. This right here is the appeal to our pride, that deep-seated desire to be our own gods, to define good and evil for ourselves. The incredible irony, of course, is that they were already made in God's image. The temptation wasn't really to be like God, but to be independent from God. So you have this really sophisticated three-part attack. How did it actually land? Well, the text shows us that the temptation wasn't just some surface-level thing. It appealed to the whole person in a truly comprehensive way. And here we can see the anatomy of that temptation. It wasn't just one point of attack. It was three-pronged. It was good for food, that appeals to our physical body, the lust of the flesh. It was pleasant to the eyes, appealing to our desires, the lust of the eyes. And it was desirable for wisdom, appealing to our intellectual pride. This was a total assault designed to make disobedience seem completely rational, beautiful, and even wise. But let's not miss this absolutely critical detail about Adam's role. The text says he was with her. He wasn't off somewhere else. He was right there, present for the entire exchange. His silence, his passivity, his failure to speak up or intervene, it makes him just as much a participant in this choice. And just like that, the moment they acted, their world completely changed. The enlightenment they were promised arrived, but it was not what they expected. Innocence was instantly replaced by a new, terrible kind of awareness. You see, their eyes were opened, but not to some higher wisdom. No, they were open to their own vulnerability and their own shame. Trust in their Creator was instantly replaced by fear. The easy fellowship they enjoyed was shattered, and their first instinct was to hide from the very one they used to walk with in the cool of the day. And right here begins humanity's very first attempt to solve its own sin problem. These fig leaves are so symbolic. They represent all our efforts to create these inadequate, self-made coverings for a deep spiritual wound. It's the first act of self-righteousness right here. And this ancient problem is so deeply modern, isn't it? We still reach for fig leaves. Ours just look a little different today. Maybe it's perfectionism, trying to project this image that we have it all together. Maybe it's blame shifting, or just staying so busy that we don't have time to face what's really going on in our hearts. They're all just modern versions of the same old thing, inadequate attempts to cover a shame that only God can truly deal with. But here's the good news. The story doesn't end with humanity hiding in shame, patching together their flimsy coverings. In fact, God's response is the most important and revealing part of this entire chapter. He's the one who takes the initiative. And this contrast is just brilliant. The entire encounter is framed by two pivotal questions. The serpent's question, Off Kiamar, is designed to create doubt and drive a wedge between us and God. But God's question does the exact opposite. It's designed to seek, to find, and to begin the work of restoration. And God's question is, Ayeka, where are you? Now, of course, an all-knowing God knew their physical location. This wasn't a question of geography. It was a question of relationship. It's the voice of a seeking father making the first move toward reconciliation, asking, what has happened to us? Where have you gone from me? And this is the absolute climax. Right in the middle of handing out the consequences of sin, God embeds the most incredible promise. He speaks of the Zerah Ha'isha, the seed of the woman. This is the very first glimmer of the gospel in the entire Bible, a prophecy that one day a descendant would come who would crush the serpent's head and deliver the final victorious blow to evil. And of course, this is the promise that finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ. So right here at the end of the fall, we actually see the beginning of redemption. Our instinct when we mess up is to hide, to cover up, to run. But God's instinct, his unchanging character, is always to seek, to call, and to make a way back. And that really leaves us with a question for our own lives, doesn't it? When we feel that same urge to hide, will we have the courage to stop, to listen, and to answer the voice that is still lovingly asking us, where are you?